12-year-old Yhoana Arteaga was born on April 22, 2005, and was from Goodlettsville, Tennessee. She attended Liberty Collegiate Academy as a 7th grader. Outside of school, she began taking Taekwondo lessons and received a yellow belt. She also lived in a mobile home with her mother, 14-year-old sister, and 10-year-old brother. Yhoana was described as a kind, polite, caring, fun, intelligent, and beautiful young girl. Yhoana had lunch with her mother around 12:30 p.m., but her mother had to return to work and left Yhoana in the trailer only for a few hours until she returned. She would have normally attended school that day, but stayed home to nurse a skating injury on her ankle. However, at 5:30 p.m., her mother received a strange text from Yhoana. "Mom, somebody's knocking on the door." 4 minutes later, she texted her mother again. "I think it was the man who cuts the yard." Her mother replied to Yhoana telling her to not make any noise. When Yhoana's mother returned home from work with her 2 children at 6:45 p.m., just over an hour after receiving her texts, her daughter called to her and said, "Mom, something happened to Yhoana." When she went into Yhoana's bedroom, she found her lifeless body on the ground, lying partially undressed. Her yellow Taekwondo belt was tied tightly around her neck and pants slightly pulled down. Blood was also coming out of her ears and mouth. Her sister called 911 while her mother started to perform CPR and saw her chest moving up and down and thought for a second that she was breathing. But when she touched her arm, it was still cold.
911, what is the address of your emergency?
My sister, we just got home. She was home alone. They killed, I think, they killed my mom and my sister. I don't know what to do.
Hey, take a deep breath, okay? What's your address?
1229, Old Dickerson Road.
Repeat your address for verification.
1229, Old Dickerson Road.
Okay, is that a house, apartment, duplex?
It's a trailer. It's C2.
C2? All right. Stay on the line with me. What's the phone number you're calling from?
605-240-808.
And your name?
It's, Precious. I don't know. My shoes.
Ma'am.
My shoes.
What is going on?
My shoes.
I can't understand what you're saying. Are you speaking another language?
Okay.
The property showed no forced signs of entry, indicating that she may have known the murderer. Except the investigators did find the bathroom window pried open. They secured the scene, collected fingerprints, and carried Yhoana's body to get examined. Of the thousands of autopsies Dr. Feng Li conducted over the course of their career, he said the post-mortem examination of Yhoana will stay with him for the rest of his life. She died as a result of strangulation, and the manner of death was ruled a homicide. The report also documented she was beaten with contusions to her head, ligature marks to her neck, along with scrapes, bruises, and hemorrhaging on her body. It took the examiner several hours to examine her body because the injuries she had sustained were so severe. The Goodlettsville community held a vigil for Yhoana's life on August 17th, where friends and family reminisced on her angelic and bubbly personality. However, once the DNA evidence was submitted, it made a hit on a possible suspect, only 2 doors down from Yhoana. "45-year-old Roy Coons lived 2 doors down from the family. He was often seen mowing the family's yard and was even spotted doing so 2 weeks after her death. Upon looking through his criminal history, He is a career criminal who has been convicted of more than 30 offenses, both felonies and misdemeanors, since 1992. His most recent was felony marijuana possession and unlawful gun possession by a convicted felon in 2016. Detectives actually contacted him 8 days after Yhoana's murder. They asked him if he ever knocked on her door that day, to which he responded, no. They also asked him if his DNA would be found on the girl. He responded that he shook her hand before. On the day of her murder, he told detectives he went to get cigarettes around noon and walked past the house around 3 p.m. There was also DNA evidence that partially matched Roy Coon's on Yhoana's body and another match on the back bathroom window. It is believed that he snuck through the window of the trailer and attacked her. In total, his DNA was found 4 times at the crime scene. He also claimed to have known she was strangled prior to investigators publicly releasing that information. After Yhoana's death, detectives and neighbors described Roy Coon's behavior as strange and expressionless, even at Yhoana's vigil.
Day one. I seen him out mowing yards thinking, he's got the nerve.
Harper recalls the prayer vigil held for Arteaga a week after her death. That night, her accused killer was in the crowd.
I walked over and I put a candle in his hand, and all he did was dropped his head and walked away. My gut feeling was, he's got a guilty conscience.
With the DNA evidence, Roy Coons was arrested in connection to Yhoana's murder on September 25th. He was charged with first-degree premeditated murder, 2 counts of first-degree felony murder, attempted rape of a child, and especially aggravated battery. He was being held without bail until his trial date. On October 4th, he pleaded not guilty. Roy's defense lawyer emphasized that there was no fingerprint evidence at the scene and that Roy was not the only man to cut the family's grass. He claimed Roy was actually home and didn't even try to mislead the police of his whereabouts. His father never believed his son committed the crime because it was unlike him. He testified that he and his son had been inside Yhoana's family's trailer plenty of times before, as it was previously lived in by a good friend. However, the prosecutors argued that DNA was inconsistent because Roy was wearing gloves. Additionally, not even Yhoana's mom's DNA was on the Taekwondo belt after untying it, but Roy's was. The prosecutor pulled out the belt while highlighting this point, and upon doing so, Yhoana's mother emotionally left the courtroom. At his trial, one witness said her and her boyfriend would often talk to Roy about faith. Around a month after Yhoana's death, Roy would have conversations with them about God and forgiveness. Her boyfriend said, "He just asked me if I ever killed somebody. I didn't ask him if he ever did, but he told me he has. He didn't tell me who it was or how long it was, but he said he did, and that shit sticks with you." That's what he said. The defense even tried arguing that as a karate student, Yhoana would have tried to fight back, which would have left more evidence if Roy was the killer. The prosecution responded, "How are you going to do a round kick or heel kick when you got a sore ankle, so sore that you can barely walk on? Can you effectively defend yourself?" After 5 days, the jury came to a final verdict. After 4 hours of deliberating, the jury found Roy Coons guilty on all 5 counts regarding Yhoana Arteaga's murder. He began crying as he heard his verdict.
Second-degree murder. Count 4, guilty of attempted rape of a child. And count 5, guilty of aggravated criminal trespass application.
All right, is that your considered verdict?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, please be seated. I'm going to ask each of you that same question, starting with juror number 14. Is that your considered verdict?
Yes.
Number 13, is that your considered verdict?
Yes.
Number 12, is that your considered verdict? Number 11, is that your considered verdict?
Yes.
Number 10, is that your considered verdict?
Yes.
Number 9, is that your considered verdict? Number 1, is that your considered verdict?
Yes.
Number 2, is that your considered verdict?
Yes.
Number 3, is that your considered verdict? Number 4, is that your considered verdict? Number 5, is that your considered verdict?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you all very much. Anything from either side?
No, Your Honor.
All right. I want to thank you. I do want to.
On January 22, 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison with an additional 25 years for the attempted rape.
Everything has changed. Our lives have changed completely.
Destruyó mi familia.
It has destroyed my family.
I don't deserve to go to prison for the rest of my life for a crime I didn't commit. By letting the real perpetrator go and preventing him, by not being able to admit to a mistake and bring him to justice, is beyond my understanding. But I will say I'm sorry for your loss.
Shortly after Yhoana's death, the family moved out of the mobile home. Friends of Yhoana also created a GoFundMe on her behalf, which raised more than $16,000 for the family. Though there are no updates on the family since her death, let us wish the Arteagas much healing and ease in their senseless loss of a sister and daughter. This case is truly haunting. May little Yhoana rest in paradise and Roy Coons stay in prison. And thank you all for watching.